Welcome, everyone, to today's edition of the Step Up Your Safety series here at RAS. I'm Kelly Marshall. I will be your host for today's session. However, I'm joined by several of my colleagues who will be talking to you more about what to expect when OSHA arrives at your door, whether that's a planned, unplanned, or related to some sort of an incident type of visit. And as we get started, just a couple of things. You've all entered with your phones and your computer audio muted. If you do have any questions that come up as we go through the information today, feel free to use the Q&A feature and type your questions in. We will address those at the end as time allows. So just a couple of things that we intend to cover today. First off, we'll start by talking about what information should be provided to OSHA, talk through more about the timeline of an actual OSHA visit, and then finally, what you should expect throughout that entire process and in follow-up with an OSHA visit. So without further ado, we'll turn it over to Terry. Terry, talk to us a little bit, if you would, about what OSHA is going to ask for when they show up. Let's start with just the basics of a general walkthrough inspection.
Yeah, for a general walkthrough inspection, your company has been pulled somewhat randomly or based on industry. And think of my perspective right now as the inspector that's coming into your location. Before showing up on site, I'm going to do a little research on your company. I'm going to look to see if you've had OSHA inspections before, citations that were issued, and whatever other information is readily available, including things like, are you participating in the OSHA consultation programs and that type of thing. I'll come on site. I will offer my credentials to show who I am. And at that point, you would normally escort me to a conference room, and we would start some discussion. The first things that the inspector are going to ask for are to help them get ready for the inspection itself. So they may ask you about hazards that are within the facility. They may ask you about workplace violence, and they may ask you about some chemicals. And all of these types of questions are related to the types of personal protective equipment that I may need to wear during your inspection. There may be some additional conversations about trade secrets and some instructions about what the inspector expects during the walkthrough. And when it comes specifically to things that OSHA normally asks for, they will almost always ask for injury records. So you should have readily available your OSHA 300 logs. You should have the OSHA 300A, which is kind of the annual summary, and you should have access to the 301, which is essentially in most states that's going to be your first report of injury reports that are out there as well. So OSHA typically gives you about 4 hours to get that information to them, so they ask for it right up front, and normally by the time they get through the whole process, you should have that information readily available. So in addition to the OSHA logs, the injury information, they may ask for more specifics about chemicals in your safety data sheets and those processes. They may ask more about participation in OSHA consultation or SHARP, just to make sure that their information is current. And they will ask for representatives from management and labor that are going to participate. And the expectation then is those people will be brought together reasonably quickly so that they can then go on the facility inspection, the facility walkthrough. Now, while they don't always ask for all of the information, you should also be ready to provide them with any of your safety policies, your safety handbook, training records, and keep in mind that OSHA may also ask about enforcement of safety policies. So you may have some information readily available to show that you are enforcing any safety policies that are out there. Now, the general guidance is that you would not necessarily hand over all of this information right up front unless it's asked for. So just provide what they ask for, and then take the step from there. At that point, the inspector will uh, talk about the scope of the inspection, why they're there, what their intent is, what they're going to do. You'll come up with kind of a walkthrough plan and and head out from there.
Excellent. Thanks. So, how about Terry, if OSHA comes following a specific incident, for example, an on-site fatality, does that look different from the process that you just described?
Yeah, it will. Um, the initial process is very different because when you have a fatality or a large incident that gets reported because of multiple hospitalizations and that type of thing, you should be expecting an OSHA visit. And they will ask for very specific information regarding that injury, that incident. So be prepared to show them any injury investigation that you've done. Uh, pictures and all of those types of things may be requested. And then they will also ask specifically for the types of training that are related to that incident. So if you had a fall from a roof, for example, they're going to ask for your safety policies on roof safety. They're going to ask for training on supervisors and at the employee level, what you've done in the past to see whether or not that's adequate.
Very good. Thank you so much. So, we've talked a little bit about what they might be asking for when they arrive. Let's shift over to Craig and talk a little bit more about what that timeline looks like. Craig, can you tell us, just based on what Terry described, we know they'll be looking for. Once OSHA shows up, what does that look like kind of from the minute they walk in the door until they leave?
Sure. Thanks, Kelly. So initially, when OSHA walks on site, and Terry had talked about this a little bit, with the arrival, they're going to show credentials. They need to be explaining what their purpose and scope of the inspection is. And the purpose can vary depending on what's occurred, and sometimes nothing has occurred. It could be because of a complaint from an employee or employee who's no longer there, former employee. It could be because something was reported, like an amputation or fatality, severe injury where there's hospitalization. So they will share that information with you. They won't get into details around a complaint, but they will share that's why they're there. And they should also, during that conversation piece with the opening conference, they should be sharing what they want to focus on. For instance, if it's around forklift, if the injury was an incident that occurred with forklift, it could be confined space, it could be a fall. So they will be sharing that, although it can broaden a little bit, and we'll talk about that as we get through the timeline. So once they get all of that informed and shared with the employer, then the walk around inspection is going to start. And your walk around inspection is going to go typically to what they shared for the focus. That being said, sometimes what they want to look at or what they explain they're going to look at, it's going to go through your entire facility. Maybe that might be um, what they want to look at is on a loading dock, and you have to walk through the facility, those kinds of things. So you want to be careful as you do that, just to make sure that you don't stop work, evacuate the facility kind of thing. But just be careful you don't take a wander to get them to look at the entire facility. Because as they do go through anything they see, that can open a door for the OSHA inspection, and they will share this typically in the opening conference as well. And you want to do everything to maintain what they are trying to focus on. So, but during your walk around inspection, we typically, um, from the employer perspective, would want to make sure that we've got the people that we desire to be walking with the OSHA inspector. That can be somebody that is focused on safety. That could be an operations manager. Typically, we would suggest to have some leadership. Also, if you are contract or union covered, you will have to reach out to a representative from the union to let them know that OSHA is on site. And typically, OSHA will then pause and they will kind of let you know the period of time, but they will pause to allow somebody from the union to come on site if that's what the union wants to do. But you can have as many people follow the OSHA inspector and walk around with them to answer questions, to guide them to what they are trying to see, to take notes, to take pictures. You want enough people to be able to do those things, and you don't want to put that on the shoulders of one individual. Um, they are going to observe a lot of conditions, observe a lot of behaviors. They are going to try to come up or ask to come up to an employee and ask them questions. That kind of gets us to number three, which is employee interviews. So depending on the focus of the OSHA inspection, they might be looking to just see what other employees are doing based off of what the focus is. Again, example of forklift, they may ask to, um, when they see people that are driving forklifts, they may ask, can we talk to this individual or that individual? Um, they may also, if the inspection is because of an incident, they may ask where the employee that was involved in the incident or was injured is located. Are they back to work? Are they at home? Are they at the hospital? Those kinds of things, because they are going to want to interview those people. And they also potentially are going to ask to talk to supervisors or managers, again, around what the focus is of the inspection. So those interviews are typically done privately. They can be done on-site or off-site. They would like to do them on-site, but those might be off-site if the employee is home or in the hospital. Again, if you are union or contract covered, the employee and the union are able to be in the interview together, but the employee does not have to allow that. They may say, I don't care, I don't want to. Uh, you cannot deny their request as the employer, but an employee can deny the request for an interview as well. And they should be explaining that to you during the opening conference. Once they get through the walk-around inspection and they do the interviews they're able to do, and they ask for the collection of items that Terry was talking about, they are going to do what we typically would call a closing conference. But currently, closing conferences are not what they used to be. Closing conferences used to be the inspector would talk about the violations and where they were going to there was going to be a citation or where they had seen the violations. Now, currently, the closing conference is it'll be back in your conference room or your meeting location, but they are going to tell and explain to you what they saw. If there was anything that needed to be corrected while they were there, they will go through that. And then they're going to say, these are the items or something uh, around this. They're going to say, these are the items that we saw. I'm going to take these back to my OSHA office. My division leadership is going to go through my report, and then we will be contacting you as OSHA to talk about the violations and the possibility of citations. And that doesn't happen. They don't make those decisions during the inspection process the way they used to. Once they go off-site, and the closing conference is done, there's going to be a post-inspection process that's going to be followed. So typically within 4 to 6 weeks, it can be longer. Um, they are going to reach back out and you're going to get something either through email, but typically you're also going to get a certified piece of mail that's going to show what the citations and violations are. And there's going to be some communication, potential response through email or phone numbers to be able to respond to those and a timeline. And they're also going to explain to you before you even get onto the call what needs to be done. It'll be written in paper or on the email. And you're going to have some choices. They're going to ask when the actual closing conference can be, what day, what time, what works for the best for you. That is typically a virtual conference. And then when you get that scheduled, they are going to talk about the corrective issues that need to be done, the findings that were done, what the citations look like, and why. And then they're going to talk about some choices that you have. And some of those choices can be around contesting the findings. The choice can be requesting an informal conference. And they're also going to lay out the time frame when those things need to get done. So there will be a variety of different time frames when things need to get posted, when things need to be corrected, um, when the conference would have to be a decision has to be made about the informal. Those things they will lay out with that conversation piece that they do virtually. And then once that is all done, then depending on what the decisions are, closing conferences can be done relatively quickly. Typically, they can schedule those. And then the decisions are made about how to deal with the violations and citations if there are any. So, but a lot of times we look at the timeline, and we make some assumptions. Just assume that they are there to gather as much information as they can, and how you can prepare for that is really the next thing that Anne Marie is going to be able to talk about.
Great. That was a super succinct job of sharing that information. Thanks, Craig. So, as you alluded, let's shift to talking more about what we should be concerned about preparing right now for the next time that OSHA does show up. And in order to do that, we're going to hear from Anne Marie.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, you want to make sure that you do self audits monthly and complete those. You can also have a third party come in and complete mock OSHA audits. RAS does that. Different agencies offer that. The things that you want to look for: housekeeping, slip, trip, fall hazards like mats, cords, spills, liquid, water, etc., products, pallets, tools, plywood, hard hand tools. Organization, does every item product have a place to be stored? Do we need to use a 5S system? Do we need more cabinet space? Better training on putting items, equipment, products away in a safer place on the job site so we don't trip and fall on it. You have hazard communication you want to look at, safety data sheets, making sure they're up to date, not the material safety data sheets. Make sure you have correct chemical labeling. So your spray bottles, if we pour bleach per se into a spray bottle, we need to make sure the spray bottle is labeled correctly. Correct storage of chemicals. Are they stored in flammable cabinets? Do we have spill kits available? Do we have the correct training to handle the hazardous material chemicals? Fall protection, working at heights. Do we have a plan? Do we need guardrails, safety nets, floor covers? The ABCs of fall protection, the anchorage, body support connectors, making sure employees are wearing their harnesses and utilizing their lanyards, that they're inspecting it daily, having a fall arrest system or a fall restraint system. Then you have PPE, making sure your employees are wearing their PPE, personal protective equipment. You have lockout, tagout you want to look for. Make sure your employees are doing this and they're doing it correctly. Make sure that they are trained in lockout, tagout, and only authorized employees are the ones locking out the equipment. Emergency procedures and equipment. You want to do fire drills, tornado drills. Do you have an emergency action plan that has these included? Plus, what to do if there's an earthquake, evacuation, active shooter and bomb threats. You want to make sure you're doing monthly inspection testing of your emergency backup lighting. Turn off the power for 90 minutes, test to make sure that the lights stay on. Testing your emergency exit sign lights, making sure that you push the test button to make sure the lights come on. Fire extinguishers. What we're looking for is making sure they're pressurized, not tampered with, the pin's in place. And when you take off the fire extinguisher and turn it upside down and tap the bottom to make sure that the powder is not compacted. Also on the bottom of the fire extinguisher, the fire extinguisher is an expiration date. You want to make sure that if it's past that date that you get a new fire extinguisher. You want to make sure that it's placed a minimum of 4 inches off the ground and a maximum of 5 feet. And this includes the top of the handle. And you want to make sure a certified company comes out annually. You can do it monthly, but you need to make sure a certified company comes out annually, again, for that. Eye wash stations, activate them, flush them out, make sure that all components are working. First aid kits, make sure you inspect those again. So for those, you want to definitely test those monthly and look at the first aid kits monthly. Make sure that your fire extinguishers, your eye wash stations, and your electrical panels are not blocked, because in the case of an emergency, you're going to need to be able to access those. So the key things, again, to focus on the audit: housekeeping organization, hazard communication, fall protection, personal protective equipment, lockout, tagout, emergency procedures, and equipment. Back to you, Kelly.
Great, thanks everyone. So just a couple of notes about what's coming up next. You will receive a brief survey as soon as you close the webinar. It has just a couple of questions and it helps us to really understand better what you're looking for and what meets your education needs. You'll also get an email with a link to the final recording of this webinar. I know a few people had asked about where to find that, so that will be coming as well. All of our recorded webinars are also now available on our YouTube page, and you can get there as well under rescompanies.com and events. That's also where you can look for our upcoming webinars for 2026. So that series will be announced in the next couple of months. We look forward to seeing you back again soon. If you aren't already, make sure that you follow us on LinkedIn so you can keep up with everything that's going on here at RAS. And we appreciate you being our partner. Thanks, everyone.